You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
You know what is genuinely funny to think about?
What is that?
Just all those wild sci-fi concepts we grew up with. Like, we always pictured artificial intelligence and digital money looking like some sort of neon-lit cyberpunk movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We expected flying cars and laser grids everywhere.
Spot on. But it turns out the futuristic reality just quietly became boring back-office accounting software before we even noticed it happening.
It is the ultimate irony of technological progress, really. The most revolutionary changes do not usually arrive with dramatic music. They just arrive in the form of an automated spreadsheet or a perfectly executed background database update.
Yeah, that entirely changes how human beings operate behind the scenes.
Exactly.
And that is exactly what we are going to explore. For those of you listening, it is absolutely brilliant to have you here with us. I am your host, and you are tuning into Vocal Technologist, where our absolute favorite thing to do is take complex information and make it make sense.
Spot on.
We have a fascinating mission for this conversation. We are going to unpack the brilliant details within the Founder Fridays FinTech material. It is packed with some of the most dramatic shifts happening behind the scenes of global finance and technology.
It really is a profound collection of information. Our goal here is to get into how artificial intelligence and shifting global regulations, plus entirely new payment infrastructures, are completely rewiring how money moves around the planet.
Yeah.
We want to ensure that you, the listener, understand exactly why this matters for your own financial future. Because the ground beneath traditional banking is shifting at a remarkable speed.
Let us start with the sheer scale of the workforce changes taking place, because it is genuinely staggering. In the material, there is a fascinating breakdown of what is happening at Block.
Yes. The restructuring.
Yeah, the chief executive, Jack Dorsey, is essentially executing a massive contraction of the company.
He is eliminating over 4,000 roles there. He is shrinking the company from over 10,000 employees down to under 6,000.
Which is a huge cut.
It is. And the reasoning is what makes this so critical to understand. It is a deliberate move to favor an AI-driven operating model. He wants smaller, highly skilled teams leveraging automation. It's a massive bet that artificial intelligence can replace traditional headcount at an enterprise scale.
But let me challenge that for a second. Is that actually realistic at this stage? We have all seen AI hallucinate basic facts or struggle with simple logic puzzles. Is Dorsey not taking a massive operational risk by firing 4,000 human beings before this technology is truly bulletproof?
It is a calculated risk. But you have to look at the alternative, which is being outpaced by leaner competitors. The bet is not that AI is perfect. The bet is that a single engineer augmented by AI can do the work of 5 traditional engineers.
Right.
And that operational shift is sending shockwaves through the entire software sector. Look at Intuit. They lost over 40% of their market cap due to immense fears that AI agents, specifically models like Claude, might completely replace traditional software subscriptions.
Because if you are a small business owner listening to this, why would you pay a monthly fee for accounting software if you can just tell an artificial intelligence to balance your books for free?
Precisely. The fear is that people will not pay for software seats if an AI can just do the bookkeeping. However, Intuit is making a very specific counterbet. They are wagering that their 40 years of accumulated proprietary data will serve as an unshakable moat.
So the data is the defense.
Spot on. They believe that historical data will make them the essential orchestration layer for AI rather than being replaced by it. They reckon that the AI is only as good as the data it is trained on.
And to make this incredibly real for you listening at home, let us look at what these models can actually execute. The material details how Perplexity can interact with Excel to build a complete 3-statement financial model for a company like Amazon.
That is right. It takes the raw earnings releases and builds the complex model. It adds an assumptions tab and creates the visual charts and polishes the formatting.
Which is incredible.
It acts exactly like a human financial analyst who would normally spend 3 days sweating over those numbers.
When you see a machine doing that level of intricate financial modeling, you suddenly understand why Block is shrinking its workforce. The AI is actually executing the work, not just drafting emails. But if the AI is doing the work and potentially making purchasing decisions, that fundamentally changes the infrastructure they need to buy things with, right?
Absolutely. What is fascinating here is how the underlying financial plumbing is scrambling to catch up. The entire payments industry is quietly pivoting to serve these AI agents. They realize that soon the entity making the purchase will not be a human tapping a credit card. It will be an automated agent.
So the big players are already moving on this.
Very much so. Visa launched intelligent commerce. Mastercard is rolling out agentic tokens. Google introduced the Universal Commerce Protocol. Starts like Razorpay and Cash-Free are also building infrastructure specifically so artificial intelligence can transact on behalf of consumers.
Hold on, before we move on, for those of us who do not work in financial infrastructure, what exactly is an agentic token?
Great question. Think of it as a highly secure, programmable digital credit card that you give to your AI assistant. You can give it an agentic token that says you're allowed to spend up to $50 a month on office supplies, and you can only buy from these 3 approved vendors.
Okay, I see.
It allows a machine to transact autonomously within the strict boundaries you set without needing you to manually approve every single $5 purchase.
That shifts artificial intelligence from merely giving you advice to actually executing complex tasks for you. We see this with OneVest as well. They are launching an AI operating system specifically for wealth management. Instead of just suggesting an investment strategy, this system automates the actual account setups and extracts data from legal documents and executes the fund transfers. The AI is doing the administrative heavy lifting.
Which naturally raises a profound question. If we have all these AI agents executing trades and setting up accounts and moving capital around the internet, where does all this automated money actually live? What are the rails it travels on?
Well, let us unpack what is happening with Kraken because it perfectly illustrates how traditional finance is colliding head-on with crypto and stablecoins. Kraken secured a limited-purpose master account from the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City.
This is a monumental shift. To understand why this matters, you have to understand the historical wall between crypto and traditional banking. Historically, digital asset firms had to rely on intermediary partner banks to touch traditional money. But with a master account, Kraken is the first digital asset firm to get direct access to settle transactions on Fedwire.
And Fedwire is essentially the central nervous system for money moving between banks in the United States, right?
Exactly. It is the core settlement system of the U.S. central bank. By giving Kraken direct access, they are building a massive bridge connecting the digital asset world directly to the traditional central bank infrastructure. They do not have to ask a partner bank for permission anymore. That direct connection seems to be accelerating an absolute explosion of stablecoin utility. We see Mastercard integrating SoFi USD for business-to-business and cross-border settlements. Visa and Bridge are expanding stablecoin-linked cards to over 100 countries supported by lead bank. And they are integrating directly with crypto wallets like Phantom and MetaMask. The reason they are doing this is pure efficiency. If you are a business trying to send money across borders, traditional banking rails can take days and cost a fortune in fees. Stablecoins settle in seconds for fractions of a penny. The major credit card networks are not fighting crypto anymore. They are effectively adopting stablecoins as their own core settlement layer.
And it is not just the traditional card networks. Meta is testing stablecoin payments across its apps. They are potentially using Stripe as a partner to enable WhatsApp transfers in emerging markets, as well as handling creator payouts on Instagram and Facebook. This is such a fascinating contrast to their previous DM project.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of spending billions trying to build their own global currency from scratch and fighting regulators, they are just using the existing stablecoin infrastructure to move money at a massive scale.
And while Meta focuses on social payments, Coinbase is expanding into the pure financial stack. They're rolling out agentic wallets, and they introduced commission-free U.S. stock trading. And they are heavily doubling down on their stablecoin rails. They are building an entire ecosystem where those AI agents we talked about earlier can interact seamlessly with stablecoins.
Looking at the regulatory side of all this, the material highlights a really interesting contrast in how Washington interacts with these different tech sectors. On one hand, you have Donald Trump meeting privately with Coinbase chief executive Brian Armstrong, offering backing in a fight against banks who are blocking crypto legislation. But on the flip side, the exact same administration blacklisted the AI firm Anthropic from federal contracts because the company refused to support mass surveillance and autonomous weapons.
It is a remarkable dichotomy. You have intense friction where crypto firms are finding political backing to push past traditional banking barriers, while AI firms are colliding heavily with government demands regarding defense and surveillance.
And I need to pause here and make a very explicit point for you listening. We are absolutely not taking any sides or endorsing any political viewpoints whatsoever regarding these figures or policies. We are strictly and impartially imparting the factual political interactions exactly as they are presented in the material.
Spot on. We are simply mapping out how these distinct technologies are being treated completely differently by the same administration. If we look at the Anthropic situation, it highlights a profound regulatory tension. MIT professor Max Tegmark argues that the AI industry is actually facing a trap of its own making.
How so?
He points out that the industry resisted binding regulation for years, heavily preferring self-governance. But Tegmark frames uncontrollable superintelligence as a literal national security threat, arguing that it requires mandatory strict oversight. So the government steps in aggressively on AI while simultaneously loosening the leash on crypto and stablecoins.
It is fascinating to see how different emerging technologies are handled at the highest levels of government. But what does this all mean for the shifting power dynamics of global payments? To understand that, we have to look at the sheer volume of modern transactions. The material notes that Stripe hit $1.9 trillion in total payment volume.
That figure is almost hard to comprehend. That volume gives them a valuation of $159 billion. They capture a massive, unprecedented portion of global internet commerce.
And that kind of volume puts immense pressure on traditional networks. Governments around the world watch this concentration of power and explore alternatives to the dominance of Visa and Mastercard. They look closely at real-time bank-to-bank payments. We see this with open banking in the UK and Europe, where consumers pay directly from their bank accounts.
What occurs is that governments increasingly frame payment infrastructure as a strategic national asset, rather than just a commercial service provided by private American companies.
Yeah.
They want sovereign control over how money moves within their borders.
The competition to build that infrastructure is incredibly fierce. Ripple Payments expands aggressively to handle the full life cycle of transactions. They collect and convert funds across both fiat and blockchain rails from a single platform, and they compete directly with SWIFT for global money movement. They try to build an entirely new global highway for capital.
Meanwhile, the consumer experience of payments vanishes into the background. It is embedded directly into the software we use every day. PayPal joins forces with Rainforest to embed payments into vertical software platforms. And look at Klarna. They hit 9 million daily users as their new bank features take hold. They moved well beyond the simple buy now, pay later model. They become a primary financial interface for millions of people.
Speaking of becoming a primary interface here is a really fun detail from the material. The Platform X actually tapped William Shatner to host a charity auction, giving out beta invites for their new X Money service. It is such a wonderfully strange and brilliant marketing move, but it's part of Elon Musk building what he calls an everything app. He wants to bring messaging and social media and financial services under one single roof, much like WeChat in China.
The scale of these international ambitions across the board is incredible. Apple Pay is in discussions with major Indian banks like ICICI and HDFC to launch support for the unified payments interface. In Japan, the cashless giant PayPay, which has 70 million users and interestingly holds a stake in Binance. Japan targets a U.S. initial public offering of up to $1.1 billion. The geographical borders of finance dissolve completely.
And fintech penetrates popular culture in ways we have never seen before. Brazilian fintech New Holdings even sponsors the new stadium and the jerseys for Lionel Messi and Inter Miami. Think about that for a second. When a digital banking app from Brazil is the primary sponsor for the biggest football star on the planet playing in the United States, the sector completely infiltrates mainstream global culture.
Which makes the venture capital side of this equation absolutely fascinating to watch. The way investments in these spaces evolve changes the fundamental nature of private markets. Plaid allowed its employees to sell shares at an $8 billion valuation.
And why is that significant?
Because it provides essential liquidity to their staff and completely avoids the pressure of doing a premature public offering. Historically, employees had to wait for an IPO to cash out their equity. By creating these secondary markets, companies can stay private for much longer while still rewarding their teams and retaining top talent.
But it is not just about massive multi-billion-dollar valuations and huge secondary markets. There is a brilliant contrarian angle here, too. Let us look at Mucker Capital. They launched a $12 million fund in Los Angeles, which in the venture capital world is a tiny, relatively small fund, but it returned 40 to 50 times the initial investment.
And that was driven by a massive return from a company called Honey. It absolutely proves that small, highly hands-on funds operating in undercapitalized ecosystems can yield incredible outsized outcomes. You do not always need a billion-dollar war chest to make a massive impact if you find the right niche.
If we connect all this macroeconomic data back to you, the listener, the impact is undeniable. The nature of work and income fundamentally changed over the last decade. 1/3 of millennials rely on gig payments and freelance jobs and online sales and tips as their primary income. They stitch together a living from multiple different sources instead of receiving a single, predictable corporate pay packet.
That variable cash flow is exactly why real-time disbursements become the financial backbone for a generation living paycheck to paycheck. The material points out that 72% of U.S. consumers received at least one instant payment.
Because when you manage gig work, waiting 3 to 5 business days for a bank transfer to clear is simply not an option. You need that money for groceries that exact same day. The instant movement of capital we talked about earlier with stablecoins and new rails is not just a technological marvel. It is an absolute economic necessity for millions of people.
Absolutely. And even the massive legacy players recognize that the architecture of finance changes for the long haul. American Express builds a 55-story global headquarters at 2 World Trade Center designed to house 10,000 employees. Despite all the fears about artificial intelligence disruption and regulatory risks, they lay down massive, permanent physical roots in New York to manage this financial transition over the coming decades.
Yet, while Amex builds 55 physical stores in Manhattan, the most cutting-edge markets operate entirely in the cloud. The material notes that with tensions escalating globally between the U.S. and Israel and Iran, traders use crypto-native perpetual futures on platforms like Hyperliquid to trade oil and gold and silver around the clock.
This is a critical evolution in global trading.
Explain perpetual futures to me like I am 5 because it sounds like incredibly complex financial engineering. Why does this let people trade oil on a Sunday?
Normally, traditional commodities markets operate on strict hours and use futures contracts that expire on a specific date. A perpetual future is a crypto-native invention. It is an agreement to buy or sell an asset at an unspecified point in the future, and it never expires.
Okay.
Because these trade on blockchain platforms, they do not care about Wall Street trading hours. When global geopolitical risks spike on a weekend, traditional markets are closed. Traders cannot react. But these digital venues prove the intense demand for 24/7 global market access. The financial world simply does not sleep anymore.
It is a profound transition. We witness the complete unbundling of traditional finance and the rapid reassembly of it on digital rails. From AI agents managing your wealth to stablecoins settling cross-border transactions instantly to independent workers relying on real-time gig payouts.
It is entirely interconnected. We move from a world where money was a static entry in a closed bank ledger to a world where money is programmable and instant and increasingly managed by artificial intelligence rather than human input.
Okay, let us start winding down and summarize what we covered because we unpacked an incredible amount of information. We see the real-time merging of AI agents and round-the-clock crypto trading and instant gig economy payouts. These are not isolated trends. They are interlocking pieces that completely redesign the concept of money.
I want to leave you, our listener, with a final, somewhat provocative thought to mull over. We discussed how AI agents begin to execute complex tasks and how payment rails adapt to serve them. If those AI agents eventually handle all our online shopping and negotiate our utility bills to find the best rates and optimize our investments, and all those transactions settle instantly on global stablecoin networks while we sleep, will human beings even need to interact with traditional bank accounts in the future? Or will our digital identities simply carry their own self-contained automated economies, silently negotiating with the world on our behalf?
That is a brilliant question and a slightly terrifying one to think about. Your own personal economy running on autopilot while you have your morning coffee entirely detached from the traditional banking system we all grew up with. Thank you so much for joining us and exploring these concepts with us. It is always a privilege to unpack these massive technological shifts with you. We warmly invite you to subscribe for more witty and authoritative breakdowns of the systems shaping our world. Until next time, keep questioning how the future is being built.
Spoken Tech for your ears.